Amidst the ancient and sacred pages of the Bible, we find stories that have shaped beliefs and inspired centuries of devotion. Among prophecies, miracles, and moral lessons, there are accounts that stand out not only for their spiritual significance, but also for the uniqueness of their events. Among these, the circumstances surrounding the end of certain characters' lives are particularly fascinating, challenging our understanding and piquing our curiosity. The narrative of these three deaths, among the most bizarre and recorded in the sacred scriptures, are not merely accounts of life's end, but are also laden with symbolism, ethical and moral lessons, and demonstrations of divine power and will. Firstly, we'll visit the plains of Sodom, where disobedience resulted in eternal transformation for Lot's wife. Next, we'll witness the tragic end of Herod the Great, a leader consumed by his own vanity and arrogance, whose death serves as a powerful reminder of the consequences of hybris. Finally, we'll ascend Mount Nebo, following the last moments of Moses, the great prophet, whose death and burial remain shrouded in mystery and reverence. Each of these stories, with their unique elements and impressive outcomes, offers a window into the profound teachings and complexity of biblical faith. They invite us to reflect on obedience, humility, and the transient nature of life while connecting us with the divine in ways that transcend the ordinary. In a distant time, in the fertile lands near the Dead Sea, stood the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, infamous for the wickedness of their inhabitants. The evil in these places was so great that it cried out to the heavens, drawing the direct attention of the divine. Decided to eradicate such centers of depravity, God resolved to destroy both cities. However, in an act of mercy, he sent angels to save Lot, a righteous man, and his family from the impending cataclysm. Upon arriving in Sodom, the angels were received by Lot, who, recognizing the divine nature of his visitors, implored them to stay in his house. Lot's hospitality contrasted with the corruption around him, marking him and his family as worthy of divine salvation. At the light of the following morning, the angels urged Lot to gather his family and flee without looking back, for divine destruction was about to fall upon Sodom and Gomorrah. The warning was clear. They were to leave their life in those condemned cities behind and never look back. Divine mercy would guide them to a new beginning as long as they obeyed this simple yet powerful condition. With heavy hearts for the loss of their past life, but motivated by the hope of salvation, Lot, his wife, and daughters began their escape. However, as the flames consumed the cities and the sound of destruction echoed across the plains, curiosity, and perhaps nostalgia, overcame divine fear in Lot's wife's heart. Disobeying the angel's express command, she looked back. At that moment, she was transformed into a pillar of salt, a permanent witness to both wrath and divine mercy. The transformation of Lot's wife serves as a reminder of the consequences of disobedience and the importance of faith and trust in divine direction. She remains to this day a symbol of the cost of hesitation and reluctance to leave behind a sinful past, illustrating the need to move forward, confident in the promise of a renewed life, free from past mistakes. Herod, known as the Great, ruled Judea with an iron fist under Roman dominion from 37 BC until his death in 4 BC. His governance was marked by a mix of great administrative skill, ambitious constructions, and ruthless cruelty against any suspicion of opposition, including within his own family. Though he promoted economic prosperity and carried out impressive architectural projects, such as the expansion of the Temple in Jerusalem, Herod is often remembered for his atrocities, including the infamous massacre of the innocents described in the Gospel of Matthew. The story of his death, as extraordinary as his life, is wrapped in lessons about the dangers of pride and vanity. Historical and biblical accounts narrate a particular episode that preceded his demise, illustrating the extent of his arrogance. At a public event in Caesarea, wearing bright royal garments that caught and reflected the radiant sun, Herod accepted adorations that proclaimed him not merely as a king, but as a god. This act of supreme vanity was seen as an affront to the true divinity, a direct challenge to the first commandment that forbids idolatry and self-deification. Shortly after this episode, Herod began to suffer from a mysterious and agonizing disease, described by historians of the time as extremely painful and humiliating. It is believed he was afflicted with an infestation of worms, consuming his body from the inside, a condition both physically and symbolically representative of the corruption inherent to his nature and reign. This terrible end is often interpreted as a divine punishment, a direct response to his arrogance and blasphemy. The death of Herod the Great offers a somber meditation on the ultimate fate of those who elevate themselves above their mortal condition, claiming for themselves honors and adorations meant for the divine. It is a poignant Moses, one of the most revered and fundamental figures in the Judeo-Christian tradition, is widely recognized as the leader who freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. His life is a saga of faith, challenges, and miracles, from his miraculous birth to the delivery of the law tablets at Mount Sinai. Leading his people through the desert for 40 years, Moses remained a conduit of divine will, guiding the Israelites not just to physical freedom, but also to a spiritual covenant with God. The biblical narrative tells that at the age of 120, Moses still possessed remarkable vitality, without weakened vision or diminished strength. However, despite his health and vigor, he was denied the right to enter the Promised Land, as a consequence of a moment of doubt and disobedience in the eyes of God. Instead, God allowed Moses to glimpse of the land of Canaan from the top of Mount Nebo, offering him a vision of the future he had helped to make possible, but would not enter. Moses' death is shrouded in mystery and reverence. According to the biblical account, after his vision of the Promised Land, Moses was buried by God in a valley in Moab, near Beth Peor, but no one knows the exact location of his tomb to this day. This divine burial symbolizes Moses' unique relationship with God, distinguishing him from other leaders and prophets. The absence of a known tomb prevents the veneration of the site, keeping the focus on faith and divine laws rather than on the human figure of Moses. The mystery surrounding the death and burial of Moses serves as a powerful reminder of his close relationship with the divine, as well as the humility required in the face of God's grandeur. Though Moses was an exemplary leader, prophet, and liberator, his solitary death and unknown tomb reinforce the message that no human greatness can compare to God's sovereignty. Moses' story invites us to reflect on the transience of life, the importance of obedience to God, and the value of leadership that seeks to fulfill divine will above all else. As we contemplate the outcomes of the stories of Lot's wife, Herod the Great, and Moses, we are confronted with lessons on human nature, the limits of our existence, and the immeasurable sovereignty of God. The transformation of Lot's wife into a pillar of salt serves as a vivid reminder of the importance of obedience and faith, especially in the face of trials and divine commands. It teaches us about the consequences of hesitation and reluctance to leave behind what is familiar but harmful, encouraging us to move forward confidently in the direction given by a higher power. The terrible end of Herod, consumed by worms, reflects the danger of unchecked pride and self-exaltation. This narrative warns us about the temptation to place ourselves in the position of God, reminding us that all true authority and honor come from Him. The story of Herod is an invitation to humility and to recognize our own fragility and dependence on the divine. Finally, the mystery surrounding the death and burial of Moses speaks to us of divine sovereignty and intimacy in unique ways. Even Moses, so close to God and instrumental in the liberation of his people, faced limits imposed by the divine will. His story is a testimony to equality before God and the importance of faithfully fulfilling His will, regardless of the challenges or personal sacrifices involved. These three stories, while distinct in their characters and circumstances, teach us about the human condition and the constant presence of God in our lives. They invite us to reflect on our own faith, obedience, pride, and how we recognize divine sovereignty in every aspect of our existence. Thus, as we advance on our journey of faith, may we carry with us the lessons from these narratives, applying them in our daily living. May faith, obedience, humility, and the recognition of God's sovereignty be the pillars that guide us amid the complexities and challenges of life, illuminating our path with wisdom that transcends ages and generations.